All right, so does the front fender on your Firebird look a little something like this guy right here? All these holes that just aren't supposed to be there, particularly the passenger side. The battery tray wreaks havoc on these old cars. So what's the solution, right? Buy a whole new fender, spend lots of money on shipping and hope that it fits as good as this one's fitting? Or do you find a way to fix this? Load it full of fiberglass, body filler? Or even better, I got a plan here, and maybe you want to check this out just the same, but we're going to use a piece of the rear fender patch. That's the wheel well opening here that was right for that part of the fender. We didn't use it because it wasn't rusted out, but check this thing out right here. It's the same contour. So I wasn't really sure how I was going to repair or duplicate this here at home in the garage. Well, I guess I don't have to. I get to free cycle some pieces I already had. And I got a piece here I just put in the bench vise, put a 90-degree bend in it here. We're going to use that to graft into here. So if you want to see how all this is done, you better stay tuned. Hey, for those of you who are in the know, this is the Great Pumpkin 1968 Firebird complete nut and bolt restoration, 2-car garage. Work on doing it all here. Gonna do a little fender patching here today, but I wanted to take a little break here. I got a box delivered to me here on the address listed in the video descriptions, and it's got a really neat stop. Get out of there. You're not supposed to look at it yet. Really neat prize inside there. You guys are gonna get the check out here in a bit, but it's kind of like the first time you held your first born, the very first time you hold them, and like, wow, it's like a sense of joy and excitement of holding that little bundle of joy in your hands. Well, that's kind of what's going on inside here. So you better stay tuned to see what's hiding inside that box. It's pretty awesome. I guess what we're going to do here, like I said, we're going to use this piece here. It was the leftover remnants of this part of the fender patch. So I guess I don't like throwing anything away because I don't like doing anything on a budget and free cycling. But this is the same contour. It has that radius and the 2 body lines that I need to put it back into here. So I'm not going to cut the inside of the fender well because it's actually still really good. It's only the outer face here. So like I said, we're getting that question, where do you cut it at? I'm going to cut it right here, right about that section there. From there down, I'm going to replace just about that wide. That's what's popping in my head. And then same thing here. We want to cut just the rust out of here. So we're going to come across here, come across the front, and come down. So this, like I said, the panel's going to look good, that little patch for the rear. But then how do we duplicate this? If we look at this thing here, this fender has a radius to it, so we're actually kind of high in the middle. So that piece there is put in the bench vise, nice and flat and bent. Well, that's a nice right angle, but when I got to put it on the side of the car here, you can tell it doesn't match the contour. So it's needs to be kind of massaged. So how are we going to do that? Well, the old Harbor Freight metal shrinker. We're going to use that here. You can see the arrows pointing towards each other. We're going to shrink the rear edge of this panel. It's going to cause it to have a bit of a contour or radius to it so it can match the shape of our fender. At least that's my hope. So that's what we're going to try to do here today. So special tools, of course, 2 pieces of metal, cut-off wheel, death wheel, buzz wheel, Mountain Dew, and a welder, some hammers, and a whole lot of luck. And we're going to get this patch panel made up and looking real good. All right, so here's where we're going to start. We're going to start by, like I said, shrinking this back edge so it gets a bit of a radius to it. So I'm not going to get carried away. Just a couple little tugs on it, I guess because I give it more of that shape with the fender that I have now, hoping that we get the contour right. It's kind of hard to really gauge from there, but each time I give it a little bit of a squeeze, you can see particularly here, it's got kind of a radius to it now, or a bow. So we just keep on working that whole thing until I feel like we've got a nice, at least a start to the shape. Might be about right. It doesn't have much. All right, well, let's see now if you can see that or not on the camera, but if I had a nice straight edge, you could probably tell. Actually, I do have a straight edge. You can see just a little bit of a daylight between there, and it's touching on end to end. So I said, don't need much. So hopefully we'll see how this test fits. Now, I went to lay this up here on the car, and it's kind of hard to gauge because the rear has a radius that comes back out, and then the front, of course, as it gets closer to the front, really starts to turn in. I don't need it quite that long, but I think we're pretty close. So the other thing that just dawned on me is the part of the fender that actually bolts on down here, the lower fender. Well, check this out. I could probably use it for a gauge. I can line it up to here, and I can check my contour and actually see that I think we're exactly where we need to be. Now the problem becomes though, like I said, this rear section, it actually kind of kicks back the other direction. So I'm gonna mark it and see if we can't twist this backside up just like that too. But we're going to use the stretcher instead of the shrinker, so we're going to change that thing out to the yellow one. Well, clearly we know this panel's plenty long enough, but I just want to get an idea. So right about here, that starts to radius back up. It hits right about there, so it's going to have to stretch it pretty tight in that area there. So I'm going to see what happens here. We're going to change it over to the yellow one here, see if we can't get that thing to at least curl up and try to match that contour, because everything else looks great. You see that just a little twist. I think I might be getting it there. All right, check that out. Now, got a little kick out. Now that's a bit exaggerated because it's got to come back the other way, but you get the idea. I've got a little bit of a radius. Let's see if that's going to work. So how do we do? Let's find out here. Lay this up there, and line up my fender, and well, look at that. So now I've got about the same kick up. Now from this line over, I need to kick back the other way. So I might actually put the, say, shrinker back in and see if I can get it to go that way. And I also know that this panel here on the floor is going to end up coming all the way down to here anyway, but you can see that I need to get some of that shape in there first before I go ahead and try to contour that in there. So I'm going to try to bend that back the other way now just to kind of get that same shape. All right, what do we do next? I'm pretty happy with the radius of our panel. It's fitting the contour here. I want to go ahead and cut this bottom section out, and I'm going to use that piece, what's left of it, maybe for a bit of a template, but I don't think there's going to be a whole lot left. But the idea though, I'm going to cut it just on the inside here because it's still good, maybe about 1/8 inch in. I'm going to come past the rust and just come straight back. I want to see if I can't get a radius in that corner. I'm not really good at doing that, cutting that radius stuff, but I'll see how it goes. We're going to cut straight across, up, and then maybe get a corner on that if I can. Well, I got all the rust out. Look at that. Kind of guessed, but I am past all the bad pitting, so that'll get us where we have good metal from there up. So this should keep the shape pretty close. I don't beat on that too much, but you get the idea. I'm in just a little bit on this edge, so when I lay it in, I'm going to cut just barely on the inside of our new panel here, so I'm going to butt weld it underneath here. So well, here's the panel we just cut out, and the one I actually kind of made here so far. The contour looks pretty good, and luckily I barely have just enough length. Probably should have measured that, just got super lucky. Back here again, not a problem because we got that panel is going to come down through here. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to trace around the outside of this, kind of get my radius, not the sharpest radius. That should help prevent some of the warping I've been getting. And then we're going to trim just the bottom side down about 1/8 inch in on the inside and see how this thing fits into the fender. So I'm going to go ahead and get this traced out and cut out. All right, so how we do? Check this out. It kind of looks a lot the same without the daggum holes in it. So that's going to work out pretty good, I hope. Now let's see how our fitment is. Now, we'll probably have to do a little bit of trimming maybe on it here, but we get the edge of it here pretty close. All right, I'll hold it in place. So I'll get my magnets, but it actually line up real nice with their line up here. Final fitment. Now it looks like I've got to bend that top corner out towards the outside wall. It's kind of in too far towards the engine. That's fine because this fender has, you can see it even in the camera here, it has kind of a radius back this way. So I need to bend this corner out just a little bit towards me, and then I'll go ahead and put a couple spot welds in that because I can't seem to hold on to it, but looking pretty good. Okay, well, I wanted to put some magnets hold in place. I might have bent that a little too far, but that's fine. We'll tack weld it here. I'll just push it back by hand just a little bit, and you can see I can probably bend it into place. The bottom contour is right where I want it to be. Now, this is going to all get cut out, but I still want to, I guess you say, get everything ready to go to that point. And then here on the bottom of the fender, of course, where it lines up underneath, the same thing. I'll just go ahead and butt weld that back together, and I'll have my contours right. This lines up real good down here, and the place I boogered up on was right here, a little bit of a gap. So I can get it welded shut, but I did booger up there some, but I know I'll be able to get it fixed, but typically a little tighter seam is where I'd like to be. So that's okay. That's how you get really good at welding, practicing stuff like this. So we'll go ahead and put some tack welds into this. Well, so how did I do? This actually welded pretty nice. Now, when I had that bigger gap, I actually had to get a little carried away, and it warped the panel a little bit. So I'm going to buff the welds down, try to keep the heat down. Then I'm going to have to actually hammer and dolly that area, because the metal, when it does that, it shrinks. When it does, it kind of causes it to pull and causes it kind of, I guess you say, dimple. So it's kind of hard to really make out in the camera, but it's got a pretty good dimple right here. So probably a little too much heat, too much at the same time, but it's going to happen to you. So maybe this would be a good lesson on how to get that straightened out. So again, I'm going to clean the welds up. That way I can hammer and dolly that and see if I can get the metal to stretch back out and get some of the shape back to it. Alright, so here's what it looks like after doing some buffing out. This actually came out about like I normally get. It comes out pretty good. This is where I goobered up. Remember that gap? Probably should have fitted the panel a little better, maybe made a new one, but I was I could fill that in. Well, I was able to fill it in, but it actually dimpled the metal. A little too much heat. Maybe in a couple of solutions to that problem, but got too much heat too quick, and look at that. I've actually got a pretty good spot there, maybe about 3/16 of an inch. But as for the rest of it back here, that weld come out really good. Matches the contour and the radius of the fender. Lays out pretty nice. I like that, but right there, it's just not any good. I'm gonna have to do some hammer and dolly work. I think we can get it straightened out, get it where it's gonna be okay, but again, a little more prep work probably could have prevented that warpage right there. Right, the area in question is right here. I want to try to do the dolly here on the outside and take the hammer on the inside and see if I can't persuade that out some. Of course, it's hard to get in here. Okay, you all have heard of Murphy's Law, of course. Now, here's what's going on inside here. I actually dinged the inner course part I've already painted, because the area I was trying to hit was directly below the Firebird element right here. Well, swing room for the hammer, just ain't a whole lot of room to get a good hit on that, but I finally did get it worked out. Definitely a whole lot better than it was. I may work on it just a little bit more, but I wanted you to kind of see the results after a few, I guess, like solid hits of the hammer there. This is the area that was super low. Check it out now. That area is not the issue. Now, of course, remember, this fender's got a radius this way and that way, but the really bad spot was right there. So I'm within a 1/16 of an inch now. So I'm going to probably call that as good as it's going to get. Again, a little more prep work probably could have prevented some of that warpage, but that's good. Now, let's get back here to the last bits here we got to figure out. I'm going to cut it just, I think, here on the inside of that, on that radius, and leave the inner fender weld exactly where it's at, so I have a point of reference. And then we're going to section in our piece from our patch panel. Okay, I've been keeping you waiting long enough. Fender repair is going really good, but I know it's probably the curiosity is getting the best of you. What might be hiding inside of here? Because, like I said, one of my wonderful viewers out there, maybe you, sent this to me, but you didn't give me a return address. But no way in heck am I going to return it, but I appreciate you sending it to me just the same. And of course, if anyone else wants to follow suit, please do. So no more further ado. What's hiding in there? Oh, the orange Mountain Dew, a whole 12-pack of cans delivered to me. So hey, thanks again for sending it to me. This is the fuel to keep this thing going and keep the bird project rolling. And of course, I do like goodies like this sent to me just the same. So whoever you are, huge thanks, appreciate it a whole bunch. And of course, anyone else wants to send me some, I'm not going to say no. Anyway, back to the fender repair. I'll get my trusty marker out here. This is where the metal is still good, so we're going to cut it here. I'm hoping to cut this out and kind of use it as a template to make my patch panel. So now the same thing, I'm going to cut it just on the inside here. Of course, get a marker in there, right? And same thing, I'm going to cut the other side. I may just come to the inside here. Well, no, I can't because I don't have that bottom radius. So we're going to cut the front face only. So we're going to come across here like that. So let's get this cut out. And just like that TV magic, we went ahead and cut that out there for you. And you see the inside of this just looks absolutely awful. So now, I'm going to use this as a template. I like using the pieces here. I'll lay it right on top of the patch piece, and we're going to trace around, knowing I got to leave a little more material here because it's going to tie into my little, I guess, front piece I already made, but that's actually going to work pretty good, I think. All right, well, I'm trying to get this thing going here, but you see here the patch panel. You can see that it matches the radiuses. I'm just going to get this clamped into place. And but well, now I boogered up the cut just a little bit right there, so hopefully we don't warp it again. But we're going to try to get this burned into place, and I'll buff up the welds there, and we should be just about wrapped up with this fender repair. Okay, so how bad did we do? Did a little buffing on it. It came out pretty good. I have a couple of little low spots in the welds, but that's not too bad. I might come back and hit those little spots there, but for the most part, I'm gonna give this fender, let's give it maybe an A-, because there is a little bit of warping when I did that. I may have to hammer and dolly a little bit, but I think it's gonna work. Definitely happy with this and replacing the fender, and gets us closer to being back on budget. Instead of $400 or $500 for a fender shipped to the house, we've got this thing fixed up for between that patch panel, using it front and rear back there, about 50 bucks wrapped up in this, and probably about 4.5, 5 hours into fixing this fender. So I mean, obviously time is money too, but this fender is going to work now. And that patch worked pretty good. We got the nice shape of the contour of the metal of the radius of the fender here, so that should match it pretty good. All right, so what's next, you say? That fender's all patched up on a budget, save a few bucks. Gonna do the same technique there on the driver's side. It just has a small hole there in the back. I may just do a small patch and use the inner brace only out of that kit. Again, that kit's the way to go. So inexpensive, fits phenomenally, love it, doing great. If you see there on the roof behind me there, that's the steering wheel. That thing was in bad shape, but not trash. It had some pretty deep cracks in it, but good luck finding one of those bad boys. I may do a video on that, so I've got plenty of footage yet to come. Got the doors to patch up, got little holes in the bottom of the corner of the doors. I don't want to do door skins because the doors look really good. Minus, we're talking pretty small holes in the corner of it. We're going to patch those up, seal them up from the inside to help stop that rust. And then I still have, let's see, the hood. I got to do the hood pins. I've plenty of footage still heading your way, just the same. Of course, anything you want to see, let me know. I'd like to get the camera in there, get you the detail on this process, because I'm learning that a lot of you guys out there, this has been inspirational and helpful for you to get going on your cars, proving it can be done at Two Car Garage. Yes, I used to have a big facility, the big shop, the paint booth, car lifts, and everything, but I downsized, but still making it happen. So, and no crazy tools. There's a basic welder, the hammer, dolly set you got, a grinder, and a whole lot of luck sometimes, and maybe a little bit inspirational video or education video. I got myself, we got Brian Minson out there in Arizona doing his thing at Arrowhead Garage. You got Louis Leon at his first generation garage in Pennsylvania, showing you how these things are done at home in your garage. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to make these things go again. So anyway, I've rambled enough. I'm gonna get the camera here for the next part of the process, but this video is gonna be wrapped up. Hopefully we'll catch you on the next go around, and whatever we're gonna do, not 100% sure, but it's gonna be something to do with this old bird right here. And we'll see you then.